Hi guys, welcome to the Wellness Circle with Gathoni Mbogwe. Today's conversation, or rather this month's conversation, is going to be about suicide prevention. If you don't know, September is a month that we use to commemorate or to look into suicide prevention globally. Specifically, the 10th of September is World Suicide Prevention Day. So this whole month, we'll be looking at the FAQs where suicide is concerned. We'll be looking into understanding suicide. We'll be looking at how different is it when an individual is grieving from one of their loved ones who died by suicide vis-a-vis any other loss. And then we are also going to be hearing from individuals who have either struggled with suicidal idealizations or even attempts, and they're here and their message to the world. And before I delve into that, I want to acknowledge that this is indeed quite a sensitive discussion, a sensitive matter. And if you or your loved ones are triggered in any way by this conversation, please feel free to reach out either through the chat box or through any of my DMs at Gathoni Mbogwe across all social media platforms or helplines. Actually, when you go online, you can be able to find different helplines that you can call in to talk to somebody or just talk to a loved one near you. All right. So the first question is, why do people attempt suicide? One, sometimes individuals have an underlying mental illness. Sometimes it's diagnosed, sometimes it's undiagnosed, and somebody is not aware. So with various mental illnesses like mood disorders or even mental illnesses like schizophrenia or substance abuse, some of those could exacerbate the symptoms of suicidal ideations. All right. Another thing would be relationship problems. Okay. So any individuals who is going through some relationship problems and probably they have previous and negative experiences, this could be overwhelming to them and likely that they will have a suicidal ideation. When that suicidal ideation is not addressed, then that could also escalate to an attempt. Okay, so usually suicide risk assessments are very, very important during this period. If an individual is going through multiple stressors at the time, so let's say, for example, you have an undiagnosed mental illness, you have relationship problems, work pressure, all those things can be really, they can become overwhelming. Yeah, and sometimes when you're in that space, feelings of hopelessness or helplessness can come in, leading to one going to the extent of having a suicidal attempt. Okay. Another reason why do people engage in a suicidal attempt would be underlying trauma. More often than not, if you are constantly experiencing it, traumatic, but also if you experienced adverse childhood experiences. So any trauma that could have happened within your childhood years, even though you seemed to have been able to cope throughout your years into adulthood, some of those things can begin resurfacing. Okay, those emotions, those feelings, and they could lead to an individual feeling overwhelmed, feeling frustrated, feeling saturation, and getting to a space of not just struggling with suicidal idealizations, but also could lead to a suicidal attempt. And last but not least is also the availability of means. All right, so if somebody is in a space where maybe they have been thinking about it, they have gone to an extent of researching, how can I be able to do it? And at that particular point, when they're at the top, at the peak of it, there's an available means. So somebody could actually go ahead and use any of that means. Question number 2 is suicide predictable? I mean, suicide is really a complex issue. And sometimes it's really hard to be able to tell and to understand the feelings and emotions that an individual is going through for you to be able to predict. However, there are a few risk factors that you can look into. For example, if somebody has had a previous suicidal ideation, if somebody is currently suffering a serious crisis or a stressor, if somebody has a diagnosed mental illness, so you can use those risk factors, or if they are under the influence of any drugs or any substance, so you can use that. So it's not as in black and white as we would like it to be. However, suicide is still preventable. The third question, the third FAQ was, does alcohol and other drugs influence suicide? Okay, and the answer is yes. When one is under the influence of any alcohol and substance use, then their judgment is impaired. Yeah, so at that particular moment, they like to give in to the impulses that they have or that they are feeling. Secondly, remember, alcohol in itself is a depressant. Yeah, and if suicide is coming, or suicidal idealizations is coming from a space where an individual is feeling an extreme sense of hopelessness or helplessness, yeah, so then adding this depressant, in their system will actually make them feel even worse. Yeah, it might look like something that is likely to fix the situation temporarily, but you actually end up feeling way worse than that. So another frequently asked question is, if you actually talk about suicide to your friend or your loved one, are you going to push them into having a suicidal attempt? Okay, so it's talking about suicide likely to make somebody to attempt. All right, and the answer is no. Actually, contrary to that thought, talking about suicide, asking if somebody is struggling with suicidal ideations or even experiencing suicidal ideation, it's actually a good thing, because what it communicates is that this person is ready to listen. This person can see that I am actually struggling. So it provides an avenue for an individual to be able to talk, and it also provides the safe space that somebody can be able to reach out to you, the person who asked about the suicide or suicidal ideation. So another question that is frequently asked is, suicide inherited? All right, and genuinely looking at, I've had this conversation a lot, looking at families, and you'll always hear, those people, the brother, this is what happened to the brother, and then the sister, it started with the dad, or even the grandfather did this. So I do understand where usually that kind of question is coming from. Okay, so when we're talking about either symptoms of mental illnesses or even mental illness in themselves, they are not directly inherited. However, you do have a genetical predisposition. You have the genetical loading. Yeah, so it's usually key to actually look at your family history. And family history goes all the way back to grandparents, their siblings, children, coming back to parents on both sides, siblings, children. Okay, so suicide is not inherited per se, but if you have the genetical predisposition and something happened, you are more at risk as opposed to another person who does not have a genetical predisposition in their family. All right. Another frequently asked question is, what should I do if I am having suicidal ideations, or if somebody I know is experiencing suicidal ideations or even has an attempt? So let's start with the ideations first. So if you are watching this and you're experiencing suicidal ideations, seek help. Seek help immediately. Okay, don't undermine, don't underestimate, don't minimize the impact that can have in your life. Remember, A suicidal ideation is a symptom of another major underlying crisis. All right, so don't underestimate that symptom. Please seek help. Please talk to somebody. Yeah, look for ways, healthy ways, I may say, to help you cope with whatever that is going on around you. Another thing that you can do, sit amongst loved ones. So go and look for support, all right? Because being isolated, being alone will actually exacerbate that symptom. If you know somebody who is experiencing suicidal ideations, please go and be with them. One of the best ways to take care of our loved ones is to be with them, like physically be with that person. So spend some time with them, have a sleepover. Secondly, help them seek help. And you know, because of stigma, sometimes it can feel really scary to go and see either a psychiatrist or a psychologist. So you as a friend, book that session for that friend. Yeah, offer yourself. I'll take you for the session. I'll sit outside and wait for you. You're not alone in this. Yeah, another way is that to encourage them to also use toll-free lines. There are so many toll-free lines that people can use, confidential, yeah, from the comfort of your home. So feel free to actually reach out to any of those toll-free lines. You as a friend, lastly, I would say, don't keep it as a secret. Please tell another person. You have to inform another person. Remember, if it's a friend, you're only going to spend only a fraction of time with that person. Okay, that person belongs to a community. That person belongs to a family, and every life is valuable. So with their consent, or just trying to ask them, who can I tell? Which family member, or who would you like me to tell this, to tell about what you're going through? Okay, and kind of figure out a way to support them. So don't agree into going into a pact that you're going to keep that as a secret. All right, because every life is valuable. So last but not least, on the FAQs, there's usually a question or a conversation around, is a suicidal attempt attention-seeking behavior? Or somebody who is going through, or somebody who's had any attempt, whether it's pills, whether it's cutting, whether it's burning, is it attention-seeking? Okay, so let me help you distinguish between that and self-harm and para-suicide and an actual attempt. All right, so we have a suicidal attempt. So when an individual is at a space where they have felt so overwhelmed and they feel that there is no any other way, at that point they are so hopeless, they are so helpless, and they feel there is no any other way that I will feel better, or that things are going to get better unless I end my own life. Yeah, and this person goes ahead to attempt suicide, or rather, basically, they have made the decision to take their own life by whatever means. Okay, so that's a suicidal attempt. So their intention is to actually end it. All right, and then we also have what we call self-harm. So when you're looking at self-harm, we are looking at an individual who is also feeling that overwhelming feeling, emotional pain internally. So what they're trying to do is balance the internal emotions with external physical pain. All right, so maybe whether it's the cutting or the burning or whatever it is, basically you're just trying to balance how you're feeling internally with outside, but you don't really intend to die. Okay, you're just trying to like release some pressure, for lack of better words, you know, allow me to say that. And then we actually have para-suicide, which I guess is where the confusion usually comes in when you're talking about attention seeking. So for para-suicide, the individual actually uses self-harm to inflict harm on themselves, but they actually have no intention of dying. So when you look at the wounds that they have, whether it's cutting or burning or whatever it is, they are really superficial. They did not really intend to die. So that's usually the difference between the three of them. However, just allow me to say that some of the things that you need to actually look out for, because there's no way to actually really tell what somebody's intention are at that particular moment. Okay, one thing that we have to recognize is that for whether it's an attempt, whether it's self-harm, or whether it's parasuicide, this person is under some form of distress, okay, and they need help. So listen to them, listen to understand, not to respond. Support them from where they are. Seek a way for them to seek professional support. Yeah, unless truly a professional risk assessment is done, we can never sometimes know where this person is when we're talking about the risk of suicide. And then last but not least, sometimes ignoring because you thought it's an attention seeking could actually escalate the problem, because sometimes it takes that one attempt, yeah, for that attempt to go through. Yeah, so don't ignore the individual, don't ignore anything that has been expressed under whatever means. Every life is valuable. That's it for today. Thank you for joining me in this conversation. Feel free to subscribe. Feel free to share this conversation with your loved ones. Feel free to reach out via the comments and also to just contribute to this conversation. And I would like to remind us all that this is a safe space. Wellness Circle is a safe space. So join me in creating a community of wellness, and we can start that by keeping the comment section as a safe space and not attacking each other, rather supporting each other. See you next time.